sometimes, when we talk to people about chess, we have this tendency of asking them, how far ahead are you able to see? We think that the secret to mastering chess lies in thinking and anticipating a certain number of moves ahead. Maybe you think 3 moves ahead, or 5 moves ahead, or 8, or 10, or however it may be. And so we think then that the strength and skill of a chess player is somehow tied and correlated to how many moves in advance they must be able to think. So what I am showing you here, and what you are looking at right now in this video, is a position where you do not have to think 5 or more moves ahead. You do not need to work out some long and intense variation. You see, your task here is to think only 2 moves ahead. So this position is what is called a Mate In 2 puzzle. So this is not the kind of position which you are likely to see or need to anticipate in any of your personal games. This is what's called a composed puzzle, which means that somebody sat down and actually made this position. This did not come about through gameplay or through some ordinary means. Its composer is a man by the name of Sam Loyd. He lived in the late 1800s, so he published chess puzzles through the 1880s, through the first decade of the 20th century in the 1900s, and he would make these puzzles, and he would publish them in various newspapers or such. And so he took this idea, right, of creating a Mate In 2 puzzle, and he turned it into an art form. So I've solved and encountered quite a few of these now. So once you've done enough of these, you'll kind of be able to anticipate and expect what you're going to be looking for and trying to figure out. So in these puzzles, there'll be a couple of things that you'll find interesting. So when you're doing these, the first move is not a check. You would think it is, right? We have to check the king somehow in order to limit its options and to make it more likely so we can then strike with checkmate on the next move. I'm going to take you through some scenarios here, though, where we're going to try to check black, and we'll see that it just doesn't quite work out very well for him, unfortunately. So, just for you guys who maybe it's just I actually just solved this puzzle before making this video. And in fact, I actually made and recorded a video where I went through this process of solving this puzzle. And I thought, wow, that's a pretty decent video. And then I went back and looked at it, and due to some changes I made to the settings and such, my audio was not recording, and so we came out with a completely silent video. And now I am sad and heartbroken and devastated and all of the feelings and emotions. So anyways, we're going to just kind of break down and look at this position and just see if we can understand what's happening here. So again, when I just tried solving this one took me about 20 minutes to figure out. Sometimes you may solve these a little faster. Sometimes it'll take a lot longer. Sometimes I end up just not solving it at all, and I end up asking Stockfish, the computer chess program, to solve it, because I decided I did not want to do it anymore, and then I remember that I need to stop being a wimp and figure out my problems myself. So, also, before we get into this, a lot of people have asked me about this cardboard cutout of Taylor Swift you see here behind me. And I imagine some of you may be thinking, wow, that seems really interesting. Just having a cutout of Taylor Swift and all, like, how did you find that, or what is it doing in your background? And you may be expecting some story on how that came to be and such, to which my answer is no. That may perhaps be a story for another time, but for now I am content just leaving it be as a mystery. Maybe one day I'll do another video where I explain the Taylor Swift story, which is pretty long, actually. It's a very interesting story. But for now, I want to, talk about this chess here and all, right? So yeah, Taylor Swift will wait until another day. So anyway, so let's start breaking it down and looking at this position finally. So there's a couple of things here we want to look at, right? So one of the major ones is king safety. So as the position stands right now, black has no safe moves. So the king currently is here on e6, right? So he can move to d6 because it's covered by the bishop. He can move to d7 because it's covered by the pawn. You can't take this pawn because it's covered by the bishop. You can't take this pawn because it's covered by the bishop. And then you can't take the bishop because it is covered by both of these pawns. So, if it were black's move right now, so also, when you're doing these Mate In 2 puzzles, it is always assumed that it is white to move. Actually, it is white to move in every composed Mate In 2 puzzle of this sort. And the reason, I think, is because it is just simpler that way. Right? We don't have to figure out who it is to move and all. Another thing about this, so if I just showed you this position, right? If I just said to you, hey, here's a position, it is white's turn to move, right? What should you do? I'm going to be honest, this one would be really, really difficult to try and figure out on the spot, right? Like, I don't know if I would have been able to, again, figure it out if I had not known that there was a Mate In 2, right? And the makings for white. So anyway, looking here as white, so I said earlier that just doing checks doesn't work, right? So I kind of want to show you a little bit of just why that is, right? Why you can't just do checks and just expect it to work out, right? Again, none of these will be the solution, right? But it kind of helps us understand a little bit more the nature and machinations of how these positions work. So one of the first things you'll think of here is maybe you want to take this bishop and go take this pawn on c7. So this seems logical enough, right? You've got the queen here targeting the king, right? The bishop is still eyeing this d6 square. So you see the problem, guys, right? The problem here is that in this case, black just goes, king takes the pawn on f6, right? So now let's say, oh, well, I'm going to keep hunting the king, right? And I'm going to play queen e5. In which case, black now just plays king to g6. So, and then you'll maybe think like, oh, like, maybe you could, try to get the queen in here somehow still, right? Although here, like, this is, like, pretty much dead, right? The king has just gone away. It can take this pawn. It can take this pawn. It can get away from here. So when you get to the point where you're having to look at a third move, you have gone too far. That is one of the good things about these puzzles, right? It's pretty easy to test and verify if a move or an idea you came up with is actually correct or not. So, let's go ahead and look at some others, right? So let's say that we instead want to take this pawn here on b7, right? So the rook is threatening the king now, right? So that's check. So, black here actually has a couple of different options. So he can go pawn c6, in which case you can't take because the knight just takes. He can also go he can also go knight to c6. Right, in which case you still can't do this also because the king now gets to the d7 square and escapes. Or, hold on, I think there was another one there I was looking at in terms of just to, spitballing all options black. Oh yeah, black can still also here, again, just go ahead and bring the king to d7. So, can't check there either. You could play a bishop, takes f5, check, in which case the king just takes on f7, and then you can't just go back and try to check it again, because then king just takes. Another thing, you may also be tempted here, as white, to just to try to play some like, maybe like pawn takes rook, and then promote that to a queen, right? Oh, hey, look at that, I promoted, right? I just got a queen on the board, So, again, this still, doesn't work, though, right? Because, and in this case, I mean, like, black has a couple of different options here, things he could do, right? So, like, say, like, you go, pawn takes b6, right? So here, wait, hold on. Yeah, so here you just go, oh, sorry, I know this one isn't made. I know the black has an escape option here. What was it? I thought I was looking at this earlier. Oh, yes, so knight takes queen, yeah. So, yeah, you may, it seems, right, like, you don't have something going there, Also, though, I mean, you also can't take, let's see, so, let's see if takes here, then takes, oh, wait, no, that one is made. So, you can see here, sorry, I didn't look at this one earlier, so, yeah, if pawn takes c6 here, then yes, that is made, because it is, guarded by the, pawn here, right? But let's see, what was I looking at there? So let's see if, yeah, a pawn takes, c7 here, though, right? Then let's see, what's the move there? Take c6, and then here, he just takes the rook, right? Sorry, I was getting a little fuzzy there. I'm looking at some moves here which I had not previously looked at during my analysis. So, basically, this doesn't work either, though. There's still other ways for black to escape. And so then you look at this, right, and you realize that what black actually wants here, what he actually wants, is to play knight takes g6, and then he wants to go king takes f7 afterwards, because now the king has an escape square, and white is suddenly no longer able to go out hunting for it, right? So that there is a problem in this position which must be addressed, right? Whatever you do has to somehow work out, come up with a way, right, where you do not permit black this option of being able to escape and get away. So, there's one other idea I looked at here, which I thought was really interesting. So let's say here that we go knight to c4. And so the idea here is black's natural instinct may be to say, oh, there's a free knight, I will just take it. Right? In which case, we now go pawn d5, checkmate. And again, just like we saw earlier, right? Oh, wow, would you look at this, right? We found a checkmate. This must be correct. But see, not quite. And the reason that this doesn't quite work here, right, playing pawn c4, is because black does not actually need to take this, right? It is not actually necessary. So, like, say he just, like, goes, like, pawn c6 here, right? Sorry, knight takes the pawn c6. So, you see, in this case, though, right, you can still do something like bishop c7 or whatever, right? Being like, oh, I still, have the attack from the queen or whatever, right? But, again, he just goes here to the d7 square, and he escapes. So, it's just kind of a messy life for everyone here, right? And, so, again, it just isn't one other thing to look at, though. We can try to push this pawn, right? But then that doesn't do anything, that'll help us from getting any proximity to the king, right? I mean, this queen here is just sitting dead in the water, not really doing anything. You could also, try to play, like, pawn takes g7 here, right? With the idea then being that you're going to take this knight and promote. Actually, let's look at that. What happens if you're going to try to take and then promote to a knight? So we'll say here, like, this, right? But then I guess that's obvious enough, right? Because you take him here, promote to a knight, because then it's check. But then rook just takes, and then you're just getting away. So, yeah, as I'm solving it, like, looking all this earlier, I'm trying to figure all this out. And then all of a sudden, I just had the strangest idea of what if we go for something similar to knight c4, right? What if we try to do some different kind of, knight maneuver here, right? But instead, all these different things and all, we try to go for knight to e4. So, what's interesting about these puzzles, right, is that the correct move oftentimes feels very deeply counterintuitive, right? It feels like it doesn't make a lot of sense here. So it may seem at first here like you're just hanging the knight, right? Black can take the knight in a couple of different ways, right? So remember though, so if takes like this, then pawn d5 is mate. If he takes with the f-pawn takes e4, then we have mate. Because the king cannot take, because this pawn now is guarded by the bishop. Or, to just keep it going here, right? Sorry, I went back one move too far there. So let's say instead, though, that black decides that he still wants to take this g6 bishop, right? And so he plays knight to g6, with the idea being, again, that black wants to try to escape and get away by taking f7, right? But you see, guys, here's where it really, really gets interesting here, right? So now, we have knight g5 is mate. Or, let's say that he also wants to go for knight takes c6. So the idea here, again, is that, black wants to take this pawn, right? So it's no longer guarding the d7 square, so that now the king has an escape square. But, you see, now is why what we can do here is knight c5 checkmate. So you guys see this, right? Like, what we have just looked at about half a dozen or so different scenarios which lead to mate. And so just as one more, though. So let's say, though, that we decide, though, that we want to go for pawn takes rook instead, right? And so now the knight no longer has c5 to move to because then pawn takes, right? So now, see, white again does knight g5, still checkmate. So, you guys see, like, we start with this weird feeling move here, right? Knight e4, where it can potentially feel like we're just kind of losing the knight for nothing, right? Like, it's just, there to be taken all the different ways, right? But whatever way black chooses to respond and try to deal with this problem, he is getting mated, right? So, doing these kinds of main two puzzles offers a very different kind of experience than you might normally see and encounter during an over-the-board chess game, right? In a lot of cases, I would not generally advise you to take your knight, right, and plunge it right here on the square where it can be captured two different ways. But you do this, though, and you realize, like, it seems weird at first, right? But then you actually work it out, though, right? And realize, no, whatever black does, or wherever he chooses to go, it is mate. So anyways, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm thinking of probably doing more videos like this because I think there is a lot of value and insight to be gained from looking at and solving puzzles like this. One of the biggest is that it increases your ability to calculate, right? It helps you to be able to see the various moves, ideas, and possibilities which you may have available to you, right? So, yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope to see you in the next video, and for now, keep playing chess, my friends.